Hi, everybody. This is John Hersey, and welcome to another module with the Contagious Leaders Coaching Club. We are blessed today to have a fabulous guest who's going to talk with us about appreciation in general and recognition in particular. Her name is Barbara Glanz, one of fewer than 550 certified speaking professionals worldwide. She has a master's degree in adult education. She has presented in all 7 continents, and as I understand that, she's the only speaker that we can document that's actually accomplished that. She's been featured on all the major networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, and all the television and radio you can absolutely think of, and she is passionate about following her own personal motto, which is spreading contagious enthusiasm. I almost said leadership. Welcome, Barbara Glanz.
Hi, John.
You've said on your website, and you say to your clients, remember, you'll never get your employees to treat your customers better than they're being treated themselves. What backs that up?
You know, it's so interesting. All the research is showing that the way we treat employees is the way they will treat customers. And it's just amazing to me. 46% of the people who've left their organizations did so because they felt unappreciated. And 61% say that their managers and supervisors don't understand the importance of appreciation and recognition. So all of those statistics really point to how important it is to create an atmosphere internally where people feel valued and cared for and are able to do their best so that they will then reach out externally to the customer. And that spirit spreads. That's that contagious enthusiasm that's part of my motto. Interesting, Gallup has done a lot of research on motivating and retaining employees. And it's interesting. Just let me throw this out to you. What would you guess in terms of the percentage of American workers giving their very best to their jobs? What would you say would be a percentage?
Less than 20%.
Yeah, 12 to 15% is what they're finding. 8 to 10% are burned out, have no life, but that leaves 75 to 80% of our workforce just doing enough to get by. And I call these people slot fillers. You know, they come in, they do just what's expected in terms of the business part of the job, and then they leave the minute the clock strikes 5 o'clock. And so there's no passion, there's no spirit, and it's often because they've been beaten down so much. And think about it, if you give your very best day after day after day after day and nobody notices, you know, why are you going to kill yourself? So it's just so interesting to me. Another question that HR Magazine asked across industries was how many of you received appreciation last year for the good work that you had done? So percentage-wise, the number that said they got no appreciation all last year was 65%. I thought actually it might be higher than that.
Oh, so would I, yeah.
65% got no appreciation all year. And so why give your best? I mean, some of us have a work ethic that comes from within. But that's not true for many, many people in our workforce today. So how can we, as leaders, help them to realize how valuable and important they are? And my little story of Johnny the grocery bagger is the perfect example of that. And many people have heard that story, but it's just a little guy with Down syndrome who heard me speak and talk about what can you do, whatever your job is, to make the customer feel special. And as a result, he puts a thought through the day, and every person's groceries he bags is turned the whole organization upside down. And it's just the perfect example of what one person can do if they feel valued and appreciated. There are lots of studies out there that are showing that, and by the way, appreciation can be 3 different kinds. It can be auditory, it can be visual, or it can be kinesthetic. And finding out what your employees want, what makes them feel best, is also an important part of it. And personalizing it to that particular individual. So if they're auditory, just saying thank you means a lot to them. If they're kinesthetic, they like things, and they can be simple things. It can be a gift certificate to accounts, or it can be, a mug that says thank you for your good work. It can be very simple things. And then the third kind is kinesthetic, and that was visual I was talking about. Kinesthetic likes touch, and so we have to be careful of that. But a handshake, a pat on the shoulder,
Sure.
Anything that says I value you.
I
I share a lot of ideas too, John, that the audience might like to hear. One of them is starting every meeting with 3 minutes of good news, and just asking every person in that meeting to share any good thing that's happened in their family, their community, on the job. It just builds a bonding and appreciation for people as individuals.
That's such a great idea. One of the things that, as I have followed your work over the years, that I just love about your work is that you make it so simple.
Yes.
When we wrote the book Creating Contagious Leadership, our objective was to try to simplify leadership because it had gotten so complicated.
Absolutely. It's the simplest little things. One of the strategies I share for managers and leaders is in the morning, put 5 pennies in your left-hand pocket, or, if it's a woman, in your left-hand jacket pocket. And every time you appreciate someone during the day, move a penny from that side to the other side. And don't go home at night until you have all 5 pennies in the other pocket. And it's just an easy way of remembering. It's the simplest little things that just make such a difference to people. And I think that focusing on that, it's not big things. One of the ideas that I'd love to share, I've been speaking to a manufacturing company, and a gentleman came up to me afterwards. He said, Barbara, I have the lowest performing team in the whole organization. They've never once met their goals, but you've gotten me thinking. Called me back 10 months later, ecstatic on the phone. He said, I have to tell you what I did. Said I got the whole team together, and I said, okay, any of you who meet your goals this quarter, I'm going to call your mothers. And I said every single one of them met their goals for the very first time ever.
Oh my, what a wonderful story.
Isn't that great? Audiences, I have clients all over the world now calling people's significant others or spouses or their parents or even children and thanking them for the good job and the good work that their family member is doing. And, they'll never forget that on either side.
Right.
And what does it cost? A few phone calls.
Well, when you and I were chatting about doing this call, one of the things we talked about, because this video will appear in a module called Involved Recognition, and we talked about how appreciation is actually quite different than recognition. It's kind of like a higher level.
Sure. Recognition is much more formal and planned and is important. But the one thing I share about recognition is that it is so important to change things and not do the same thing over and over and over. Everybody has the employee parking space and employee of the month and some of those kinds of things. So coming up with creative things like naming a hallway after the employee, or naming a dish in the cafeteria, or doing something that is a little bit different and creative every quarter so that it doesn't become old and boring. Appreciation, on the other hand, is much more spontaneous, much more personally focused. I ask every group of managers or supervisors that I speak with, do you know the passion of each of your direct reports? Do you know what it is that just turns them on, that they just come alive when they talk about it? And those are the things to note down in a file to remember, and then in some way recognize that with them, whether it's cutting out an article, giving them a ticket to something, or just asking them, how's your Harley? What trips have you been on today? Or if it's a favorite sports team, I see your team won this weekend. Anyway, little things that say, I appreciate you as a human being. And that's what we're looking for with our customers as well. Everybody wants that human level connection to say, I see you. You are of value.
Well, one of the things that we believe wholeheartedly and enthusiastically and passionately as you do is that the organizations that are going to succeed in the future are the organizations that are going to distinguish themselves, not necessarily through product development and not necessarily through brilliant marketing, but they're going to distinguish themselves by having the best people. And the way to attract and keep the best people is to have the best culture, and the way to do that is to have people really want to go to work in the morning.
That's right. That's right. You know, I use a model in all of my work that I call the human business model, and it says every interaction we have with anyone has two levels. The business meeting, their business level, which is their external objectives, but there's also the human level, which is all about how they feel in that interaction. So I apply that to everything in my work, whether it's internally. Those people that I call slot fillers that do their work like this are just taking care of the business. And if you look at what creates loyalty, it's always the human level, how people are treated. So it's customer loyalty, but it's also the employee loyalty, because it's how people feel in that environment, and are they valued, and it all goes back to appreciation and recognition. I had an amazing experience this last week, John. I was in the Charlotte airport, and I walked into the ladies' room, and this lovely African-American woman said to me, "Hello, welcome to Valerie's Happy Restroom." Be happy, you'll pee happy. Let me show you a seat. I had all kinds of stuff, so she said, "You've got a lot of stuff. You get the VIP section." So I just was so delighted. She did this with everyone who came in. Everybody laughed and smiled. On the way out, I talked to her, got her email. I said, "I'm going to write about you and talk about you." And she said, "You know, my mama told me if you can't have fun at work, then just stay home." And I thought, what a joyful sort of culture she created in the ladies' room, being the best she could be at her job.
It's so true. It's a wonderful story. It makes me sit here and wonder, you know, if that woman can do it, then why can't we do it every day in our jobs? And part of the problem is we sort of look at the whole company rather than just looking at our world and say, how do I make my world more fun? How do I make the people I work with more appreciated? How do I recognize the people that are around me and not worry about everything else?
That's right. I use a little three-column chart. I'm very visual, John, and one of the gifts I think I've been given is to take quite difficult concepts and make them very, very simple. And so I use a little three-column chart with a minus column, a zero column, and a plus column. And down below it says your choice in every interaction. And if you discount people, make them feel less important than you or the organization, they're going to leave with a minus. If you just take care of their business, it's a zero. But every time you create a human level connection, whether it's with an employee or a customer or a colleague or anybody in your life, that person is going to leave feeling a little bit better because they interacted with you. And that's the choice that everybody has every single day in their whole lives, not just in their
That's so true. Well, I want to conclude our conversation this morning, partly, but I want to say to the members of the Contagious Leaders Coaching Club, you know, I've heard some little noise glitches here and there in our call. Let me say, we're using a technology, we're combining Skype with a software program so that we get to have access to Barbara Glanz, who's in Florida, while I'm in Fountain Hills, Arizona, and you are dispersed all over the world. And we get to do that because of this technology, and there's a little price for the technology, and sometimes it's not as perfect as we'd like to see it, but that's what makes it special. Barbara, I can't thank you enough. You've really made a huge difference to the members of the Contagious Leaders Coaching Club. You're the best, and I can't wait to see you soon.
May I end with a quotation?
Please do.
This is something from Albert Schweitzer that I use every time I speak on appreciation. And it says, sometimes our light goes out, but is blown again into flame by an encounter with another human being. Each of us owes the deepest thanks to those who have rekindled this inner light. So thank you to you, John, and thank you to all of you out there who I hope are rekindling the inner lights of all the people you come into contact with. God bless.
God bless you, Barbara. Thank you so much. And remember out there, be well and be contagious.